Good morning, each and every one of you. In response to your invitation to discuss the Magna Carta of Women in focusing on the risk of higher incidence of domestic-related cases during pandemic, may I ask you first, what is violence against women? Ano po ba ang pagkakaintindi ninyo ng VOW? Okay, so violence against women or VOW appears as one of the country's pervasive social problems. As defined by the Universal Declaration of the Elimination of Violence Against Women in 1993, VOW is any act of gender-based violence that results or is likely to result in physical, sexual, or psychological harm or suffering to women, including threats of such acts, coercion, arbitrary deprivation of liberty, whether occurring in public and private life. Gender-based violence is any violence inflicted on women because of their sex. According to the Republic Act 9262 or the Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children Act of 2004, vow is any act or a series of acts committed by any person against a woman who is his wife, former wife, or against a woman with whom the person has or had sexual or dating relationship, or with whom he has a common child, or against her child, whether legitimate or illegitimate, with or without the family abode, which result in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, psychological harm or suffering, or economic abuse, including threats of such act, battery, assault, coercion, harassment, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty. Violence against women includes but not limited to physical violence or the act that includes bodily or physical harm, sexual violence or the act that is sexual in nature, committed against a woman or her child, psychological violence or the act or omission that causes or likely to cause mental or emotional suffering of women, economic abuse, or the act that makes or attempts to make a woman financially dependent. Violence against women is a human rights violation and is a universal problem. The UN Women Organization and the World Health Organization claims that globally 35% or 1 in 3 women experience physical and or sexual violence by an intimate partner or sexual violence by any perpetrator in any other form. According to the 2017 National Demographic and Health Survey conducted by the Philippine Statistics Authority, 1 in 4 Filipino women aged 15 to 49 has experienced physical, emotional, and or sexual violence by their husband or partner. Today, as our country experiences COVID-19 pandemic, violence against women has dramatically increased. UN Women Organization called its phenomenon as the shadow pandemic. It happens because of disruption or change in the normal activities by all members within a household and because of economic burden due to loss of livelihood and job. Generally, impacts of violence against women includes vow strikes the personhood of women, where it does not only affect women's physical and reproductive health, but especially their mental and emotional state. It has caused women to feel ashamed and to lose their self-esteem. It also threatens women's personal security. Violence against women limits human development as it jeopardizes women's health and curbs their capacity to participate in social development. Working women's productivity decreases due to frequent absences resulting from VOW. VOW is responsible for 1 out of every 5 healthy days of life lost to women of reproductive age. VOW limits human development, or VOW further drains the country's financial resources. As a matter of fact, our country has spent millions of pesos in 2002 to treat VOW survivors, including their medical treatment, psychological therapies and programs, maintenance of shelters, cost of legal and court proceedings to prosecute perpetrators, training cost of service providers, and other indirect social costs to family members of VOW survivors and perpetrators. VOW is an issue of governance. A state promotes good governance when it makes available effective remedies to eliminate violence against women in the homes, in the communities, and in the state. Prevent violence from happening to women and children by educating ourselves about the laws governing VOW. We have here identified 6 laws on violence against women in the Philippines, and this includes 1. Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995. This act declares sexual harassment unlawful in the employment, education, or training environment and for other purposes. The state shall value the dignity of every individual, enhance the development of its human resources, guarantee full respect for human rights, and uphold the dignity of workers, employees, applicants for employment, students or those undergoing training, instruction, or education. Toward this end, all forms of sexual harassment in the employment, education, or training environment are hereby declared unlawful. For work, education, or training related sexual harassment, defined that work, education, or training related sexual harassment is committed by an employer or employee, manager, supervisor, agent of the employer, teacher, instructor, professor, coach, trainer, or any other person who, having authority, influence, or moral ascendancy over another in a work or training or education environment, demands, requests, or otherwise requires any sexual favor from the other, regardless of whether the demand, request, or requirement for submission is accepted by the object of this act. In a work-related or employment environment, sexual harassment is committed when the sexual favor is made as a condition in the hiring or in the employment, re-employment, or continued employment of said individual, or in granting said individual favorable compensation, terms of conditions, promotions, or privileges, or the refusal to grant the sexual favor results in limiting, segregating, or classifying the employee, which is in any way would discriminate, deprive, or diminish employment opportunities, or otherwise adversely affect said employee. Number 2, in an education or training environment, sexual harassment is committed against one who is under the care, custody, or supervision of the offender, or against one whose education, training, apprenticeship, or tutorship is entrusted to the offender. when the sexual favor is made a condition to the giving of a passing grade, or the granting of honors and scholarships, or the payment of a stipend, allowance, or other benefits, privileges, or consideration, or when the sexual advances results in intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment for the student, trainee, or apprentice. Any person who directs or induces another to commit any act of sexual harassment as herein defined, no? Or who cooperates in the commission thereof by another without which it would not have been committed, shall also be held liable under this Republic Act. Number 2 Act is the Anti-Rape Act of 1997, or more commonly known as the Anti-Rape Law of 1997, penalizes any person who shall have carnal knowledge or commit sexual assault to a child below 12 years of age. To be specific, the law provides Article 266-A, rape, when and how committed. Then the Article 266-A, when and how committed, 1. By a man who shall have carnal knowledge of a woman under of the following circumstances. 1. Through force, threat, or intimidation, when the offended party is deprived of a reason or otherwise unconscious. By means of fraudulent, machination, or grave abuse of authority, and when the offended party is under 12 years of age or is demented, even though none of the circumstances mentioned above be present. By any person, another one is that by any person who under the circumstances mentioned shall commit an act of sexual assault by inserting his sexual organ, the penis, into another person's mouth or anal orifice, or any instrument or object into the genital or anal orifice of another person. The Article 266-B penalty, rape under, okay? So whenever the rape committed with the use of deadly weapon or 2 or more persons, the penalty shall be reclusion perpetua to death. When by reason or any occasion of the rape, the victim has become insane, the penalty shall become reclusion perpetua to death. And when the rape is attempted and homicide is committed by a reason or on the occasion thereof, the penalty shall be reclusion perpetua to death. Okay? And when by reason or the occasion of the rape, homicide is committed, the penalty shall be death. The death penalty shall also be imposed if the crime of rape is committed with any of the following. 1. When the victim is under 18 years, minor po, and the offender is a parent, ascendant, step-parent, guardian, relative, by consanguinity or affinity within the third civil degree, or the common law spouse of the parent of the victim. When the victim is under the custody of the police or military authorities, or any law enforcement or penal institution. When the rape is committed in full view of the spouse, parent, any of the children, or other relatives within the third civil degree or consanguinity. And when the victim is a religious engaged in legitimate religious vocation or calling is personally known to be such by the offender before at the time of the commission of the crime. And when the victim is a child below 7 years old. And when the offender knows that he is afflicted with the HIV virus o yung sinasabi po nating human immunodeficiency virus, acquired immune deficiency syndrome, yung AIDS, or any other sexually transmitted diseases, and the virus or disease is transmitted to the victim, and when committed by any member of the armed forces of the Philippines or paramilitary units thereof of the Philippine National Police or any law enforcement agency or penal institution when the offender took advantage of his position to facilitate the commission of the crime. And when the reason on the occasion of the rape, the victim has suffered permanent physical mutilation or disability. And when the offender knew of the pregnancy of the offended party at the time of the commission of the crime. And lastly, when the offender knew of the mental disability, emotional disorder, and or physical handicap of the offended party at the time of the commission of the crime. And another act, the Rape Victims Assistance Act. This act shall be known as the Rape Victim Assistance and Protection Act of 1998. The state hereby declared the policy to provide necessary assistance and protection for rape victims. Towards this end, the government shall coordinate its various agencies and non-government organizations to work hand in hand for the establishment and operation of a rape crisis center in every province, city or municipality that shall assist and protect rape victims in the litigation of their cases and the recovery. So, the Rape Crisis Center is headed by the Department of Social Welfare and Development. The DSWD, the DOH, the DILG, the DOJ, and lead non-government organizations or the NGOs with proven track record or experience in handling sexual abuse cases shall establish in every province, city, or municipality a rape crisis center located in a government hospital or health clinic or in any other suitable place for the purpose of 1. Providing rape victims with psychological counseling, medical and health services, including their medico-legal examination. Securing free legal assistance or service when necessary for rape victims, and assisting rape victims in the investigation to hasten the arrest of offenders and the filing of cases in court. Ensuring the privacy and safety of rape victims, providing psychological counseling and medical services whenever necessary for the family of rape victims, developing and undertaking a training program for law enforcement officers, public prosecutors, lawyers, medical legal officers, the social workers, and barangay officials on human rights and responsibilities, gender sensitivity, and legal management of rape cases, and adopting and implementing programs for the recovery of rape victims. The DSWD again shall be the lead agency in the establishment and operation of the Rape Crisis Center. Another act is an act declaring unlawful matching of Filipino mail order brides to foreigners. Republic Act 6955, Mail Order Bride Law. An act to declare unlawful the practice of matching Filipino women for marriage to foreign nationals on a mail order basis and other similar practices, including the advertisement, publication, printing, or distribution of brochures, flyers, and other propaganda materials in furtherance thereof, and providing penalty therefore. It is the policy of the state to ensure and guarantee the enjoyment of the people of a decent standard of living, and the state shall take measures to protect Filipino women from being exploited in utter disregard of human dignity in the pursuit of economic upliftment. Pursuant thereto, it is hereby declared unlawful: 1. For a person, natural or judicial, association, club, or any other entity to commit, directly or indirectly, any of the following. Like for example, 1. Establishing or carry on a business which has for its purpose the matching of Filipino women for marriage to foreign nationals, either on a order uh, mail order basis or personal introduction, or advertise, publish, print, or distribute, or cost the advertisement, publication, printing, or distribution of any brochure, flyer, any propaganda material calculated to promote the prohibited acts in the and to solicit, enlist, or in any manner attract or introduce any Filipino women to become a member in any club or association whose objective is to match women for marriage or foreign nationals, either on a mail order basis or through personal introduction for a fee, and to use the postal service to promote the prohibited act. And the fifth act is the Anti-Trafficking in Person Act of 2003. And this act is known as the Republic Act 9208, institutes government policies to eliminate trafficking in persons, especially women and children. It establishes the necessary mechanisms to protect and promote trafficked persons and provide penalties for violators. What is trafficking in person? We used to hear this one, even in social media. Trafficking in persons is an illegal act and is considered a violation of human rights and inimical to human dignity and national development. This consists of the following elements. First, involves the recruitment, transportation, harboring, or receipt of a person or persons. It is committed with or without the victim's consent or knowledge. It is done within or across national boundaries. It is committed by means or threat or use of force or under forms of coercion, abduction, fraud, deception, abuse of power or position, giving or receiving of payments or benefits to achieve the consent of a person, having actual control over the other. And it is done for the purpose of exploitation, such as sexual exploitation, forced labor or services, slavery, and removal or sale of organs or other similar acts. And last act is the Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children of 2004. Violence against women and their children refers to any act or a series of acts committed by any person against a woman who is his wife, former wife, or against a woman with whom the person or had a sexual or dating relationship, or with whom he has a common child, or against her child, whether legitimate or illegitimate, within or without the family abode, which result in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, psychological harm or suffering, or economic abuse, including threats of such as battery, assault, coercion, harassment, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, which includes but not limited to physical violence, sexual violence, psychological violence, economic abuse. Economic abuse. Okay, so again, stop the violence against women. Start women empowerment. Thank you, and may God bless us and keep us safe always.